Welcome back to Theory Smack. I'm Anthony, and today we're talking about Sugar Episode 3, Shibuya Crossing. We've got more clues that something supernatural may in fact be going on here, and some of your theories from last week are looking more and more likely. So if you love talking theories and are looking for a community to geek out over great television each week, you are in the right place. Click subscribe to join us, and let's jump in. The episode opens with John narrating that he hasn't been sleeping well and has been having nightmares, making me think my silly werewolf theory might actually hold some weight. John gives Ruby a call to ask if she has any info on the Siegel case, and she says she doesn't and reiterates that she believes this case is bad for him, which continues to beg the question of why is Ruby trying so hard to keep John off this case? Well, we might get some insight into that later in the episode. Next, we see Melanie taking a call from a distraught Teresa, who says some men came by and were asking questions, which prompts Melanie to head over to her place, and when she arrives, she's met at the door by Stallings. Meanwhile, Sugar gets a call from Charlie, who's been sort of a mysterious unknown character up to this point, and John explains that Charlie's a civilian friend of his that he likes to work with, who's been keeping an eye on Melanie. John meets with Charlie in her van, where they scope out the situation at Teresa's place, and then John heads inside and poses as a parole officer where he tells everyone to get out. Stallings, however, isn't buying John's act, but then he's called away when it appears his truck has caught fire outside. While Stallings is distracted, John sends Teresa off with Charlie, and then he, Melanie, and Wiley take off in his Corvette. We cut to Kenny paying a visit to this guy, Everett, who we later learn is an NSA agent, so Kenny uses him to pull background information on John. Everett digs up the basics, like where John was born, that he has a sibling, and that his father died when he was young, but then he goes on to share that John attended the Defense Language Institute, and Kenny believes he likely went there to become a spy, and tells Everett to keep digging. Back with John and Melanie, they talk about what's going on, and Melanie shares that she had been working with Teresa to get out of a bad relationship, and that not long after, Teresa's sister Carmen called her for help as well. Melanie explains that at the time Olivia was helping her and that she and Carmen got really close. In a flashback of the night Carmen died, we see that Olivia was unable to get in touch with Carmen, so she went over to her place and found her dead inside. Moments later, Clifford entered the house with a body bag, and Olivia shot and killed him. Olivia called Melanie for help, and the two of them put Clifford into the trunk of Olivia's car, and Melanie says that was the last time she had seen or heard from her, which I found to be pretty suspicious, especially pairing it with the fact that we see Melanie visiting Bernie at the end of the episode. At Ruby's place, she's alerted that someone is digging into John's past and sees that Everett is the one behind it. Kenny asks Everett how he can get to John, and Everett suggests his mother, who lives out in Arizona. Next, we meet David's mother, which triggered some serious PTSD in me as I had flashbacks to my hatred of Skyler from Breaking Bad. Margit and Bernie discuss David's upcoming film as well as his potential scandal, but Bernie says they're working on it. John leaves Wiley at home with a classic film and heads to the party we heard about in the last episode, which is taking place at Ruby's house. After she welcomes everyone, we see John engaging in small talk when this woman says,
کلاه بزرگ میپوشی دل کرم سله میذاری رو دستت ولی بازم وقتی میری بیرون همه خیلی کوچیک میشه.
You put on a big hat and all this sunscreen, but still you step outside and it's as if your skin is too tight. And I think this is likely a major giveaway as to what's going on here. Someone in the comments of my last video said they thought John was a vampire, which I sort of just brushed off because I wasn't seeing it, but this comment certainly has me thinking that may just be the case. Maybe this modern group of vampires has developed some sort of sunscreen that protects them from the sun, and maybe the injections we've seen John taking prevent their need for sucking blood. This theory is making more and more sense, and as we'll see shortly, they drop even more vampire hints in this very episode. John then sees this girl from across the room, and he appears to think she could be Olivia. He attempts to follow her, but she goes to the bathroom, which is later opened by someone else, and we see that the bathroom is empty, insinuating that this girl must have just been a vision of John's. Sugar chats with an old friend Henry, where he talks about a street crossing in Tokyo he used to visit when he says, "I sat there for hours just watching them. Well, feeling them, feeding more into the theory that John is more than human. Henry then says he's been having trouble sleeping as well, and then talked about buying a garlic press, yet another reference to vampires. Next, it's John's turn to meet with Ruby, and I'll admit I thought there would be some seriously weird stuff going on, but instead we see her reading through his notebook, which is supposed to be an objective account of his interactions and observations of other people in his line of work. But Ruby's upset with him because it's got a lot of writing about how John feels. Ruby says, "We're here to observe these people, not participate in their lives," and then says, "This was your idea because of what happened to Jen," followed by, "Don't forget who you are." Now obviously Jen is John's sister, and we have no idea what happened to her at this point, so this just heightens the mystery there. And I'd love to know what Ruby meant by "don't forget who you are." This could be interpreted in many different ways, as maybe he's a vampire, maybe he's a werewolf, maybe he's an alien, maybe he's a Russian. We'll talk about more of this here shortly. Now, this room with all the notebooks and mysterious black box gave me some pretty strong spy vibes, which had me thinking maybe this is something more simple, like perhaps Russian spies. But not only do I not believe that's where this is going, I really hope that's not where we're headed. John then looks down at this black case on the table and asks Ruby if she's heard from them, and Ruby says, yes, they're counting on us. And this line had me wondering if these people are aliens. If it's not clear, I'm still kind of all over the place, but honestly, I'm glad that's the case considering this is still only episode 3, and I'm glad we don't already know what's going on. After the meeting, John asks if Ruby got Charlie's surveillance pictures, and Ruby says the main guy's name is Byron Stallings. We then see David meeting with Bernie, where he says he did some digging into the party, which is for the Cosmopolitan Polyglot Society, which he believes is a group of spies, and says that he's going to head to Arizona to meet with Sugar's mother. Interestingly, if you look at the abbreviation of Cosmopolitan Polyglot Society, CPS, you may be reminded of another agency, Child Protective Services. Is it possible all these people are working to protect... I'm just kidding. I don't actually think this. This is just how my brain works. Let's just keep moving. We then see Ruby on a phone call with Dr. Vickers, which is the same doctor Ruby tells John he needs to see for his medical issues. And Ruby tells Dr. Vickers that John is on to Stallings, and it's only a matter of time before he's on to the rest. Vickers says Ruby needs to tell the others, and that it's time for Miller to know, which is a character we've yet to meet. The episode wraps up with shots of Kenny and David headed to Arizona, Melanie going over to her ex Bernie's place, Ruby deleting records of Stallings from various databases, and John going for a night swim where we hear his narration say someone is hiding something that they want to keep out of sight. Then we see Ruby typing on the old typewriter from her home as she reads through the notebook she gathered from everyone earlier in the episode. Okay, so that montage there at the end of the episode is a pretty serious setting up of future events. Melanie meeting with Bernie is super suspicious and definitely has me feeling like she's more involved than she's letting on. I just don't understand how she helped load Clifford's body into Olivia's trunk, followed by Olivia's immediate disappearance that very night. Things are definitely not adding up here. One theory could be that Olivia knew about David's scandals and was threatening to go public with it, leading her family to deal with her. It's definitely odd to me that Olivia's grandfather is the only one that's overly concerned about her disappearance, but as the other characters have stated, it's easy to be relaxed about the situation considering Olivia used to go on benders all the time, so her disappearance isn't technically out of the norm for her. And of course, we've got the big mystery here with Ruby, Stallings, Vickers, and this new Miller character. It appears John is a part of something much larger than himself and is on the verge of learning things he shouldn't be. I'm definitely interested in what's going on with this typewriter in Ruby's home. Is it some form of advanced tech used for communication but disguised as an old typewriter? It seems like that has to be the case since John looked at it and asked Ruby if she'd heard from them. As I said earlier, I'm still pretty wrapped up in the mystery of it all and having a lot of fun theorizing all of the many places this show could go. That said, I do feel pretty strongly that the most likely thing we're looking at here is some type of non-human life forms. I feel most strongly at this point that they're vampires, but I suppose it's possible that we could be dealing with aliens or potentially even AI. So let me know your thoughts of episode 3 and of course any theories you have after this episode. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.